Handling difficult conversations with concern for mental health is a skill that all managers need to develop and maintain. We have 822,000 people out of the workplace with workplace stress. We've seen an increase in calls to domestic abuse helplines of 61%. My name is Michelle Fisher, and I'm going to talk to you about some things to consider when you're handling these difficult conversations. And I'm going to use the acronym NAS, N-A-S. N for notice, A for approach, S for signpost. Let's take a look first of all then at noticing. In order to notice challenges that your team have with their mental health takes time. Allowing time to build those relationships, allowing time for those important one-to-one interactions really make a difference. And what is it that we need to be looking out for? There's three key areas that start to go wrong when our mental health becomes challenged. And they are our emotional situation, our physical bodies, and our behaviour. So let's have a look first of all at the emotional side of things. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and it's very healthy to have lots of different emotions during that time. We may be happy, sad, angry, frustrated, shame, lots of these emotions. But what if we could only feel the difficult emotions, the negative emotions, embarrassment, shame? What if we're only noticing criticism and we're discounting praise? There's some really unhealthy thinking traps that we can fall into, like catastrophizing. So when we notice something small that's gone wrong, maybe a little bit of criticism, something that perhaps we didn't handle as well as we could have done, we actually catastrophize. We make it a much bigger problem, or maybe we start predicting what's going to happen in the future, but the worst possible scenarios of what could happen. Also, look out for labeling. Notice what your team members are saying. How are they describing themselves? Remember, we're looking for self-esteem, not confidence. We're looking to know whether individuals feel that they are adding value, that they're mattering. Watch out if people are referring to themselves as stupid or incompetent or lazy, incapable. These kind of defining critical labels can start coming across. So as a manager, what you're looking for is clues to how somebody is thinking about themselves. What is happening within their emotional landscape? The second one then. The second one is around physical. Their actual physical fitness. One of the things that we know is when we are struggling mentally, we actually release hormones into our bodies that over time can do significant amounts of damage. This can lower our immune system. What that means is we're actually more vulnerable, and we're vulnerable to real physical fitness challenges. Think for yourself, where do you hold your stress? Some of us, it's headaches or shoulder pain. So it might be the physical body aches and pains. Maybe it's stomach related. So we may have problems with digestion, that sort of thing. Each member of your team may be different. So understanding what are the kind of things that can start to show up. Maybe they're having more time absent. And often what we do is we take care of the symptom. So we've taken care of the headache, but actually, if that was a symptom of what's happening with our mental fitness, then the likelihood is this is going to recur and quite likely get worse as well. So look out for clues with people physically where they might be changing. That might mean it's time to have a conversation. And then what about this last one then? Behavior. That is the one that you're going to see. That's the easiest one to see. It's not so easy to know the internal dialogue, the emotional landscape that someone's operating in. It's not always so easy to see physical changes for somebody, but you are going to notice the behavior ones. It may be that somebody's become more aggressive, perhaps because they've become defensive. maybe they are falling out with other members of the team, maybe they are very quick to judge, quite difficult maybe even to work with, or they may be completely withdrawing. You might notice that they're not responding the way they ordinarily did. Maybe you're struggling to get time with them. Maybe they're not responding to emails in the same way. Maybe they're not showing up with things that are optional. So looking out for these different key areas is incredibly important. So the first thing we need to be able to do is notice, make time, build relationships, look out for differences in those three key areas. Once we have picked up on something, we need to be able to start the conversation. And what good managers are doing is becoming really assertive in these situations. We want to avoid being passive. So passive might mean choosing not to notice, discounting those instinctive moments when you think maybe something isn't quite right, and avoiding an opportunity to open up the conversation. Passive might also be allowing a member of your team to overstep your boundaries, maybe making you responsible for things that you aren't responsible for. Remember, you are a manager. That does not make you a doctor, a therapist, a parent, or even necessarily a friend. In fact, if you are also personal friends, you need to be very clear that any support you're offering for somebody out of friendship is a very separate thing to what you're doing as the manager in the work role. So making sure that you are showing up, that you aren't being passive, that you are prepared to have these conversations, you're clear what your boundaries are. You also therefore need to be clear what the values and policies of your employer mean that you are responsible for, so that you are in a position to be able to act and to be able to be very, very clear what you are and aren't able to do. And you need to be realistic with individuals, especially if you've got a large team that you're managing. Any kind of flexibility that you offer needs to be something that you could credibly offer to all members of your team. When you have the conversation then, think about the best way to do it. Ideally, we want to do this face to face. Of course, this has become extra difficult now, but if you're able to have these kind of conversations in person, that's so much better. Try to engage in a way that removes as many barriers as possible. Perhaps sort of sitting from a 45-degree angle so we're not too intense. Also thinking about, if possible, perhaps not having barriers like desks in between you and the other person. Give people plenty of notice about being able to come together and have this meeting, and make sure you protect the time. So once you have made an agreement that you're going to have this conversation and the other person is aware that this is going to be happening, really protect that time. Avoid cancelling and rearranging. Be true to your word. When you've made this, let's follow that commitment through. Be mindful that whilst we want to be assertive, we want to be clear, we want to be supportive, what we don't want to be is we don't want to be aggressive. Aggressive management would be forcing someone to talk. This might not be the right time. You actually might not be the right person. For some people, it's actually healthier for them to engage and get support and be listened to maybe by somebody else, maybe a mental health first aider or a champion or somebody completely out of the workplace. So we're not going to force these conversations. Clearly, as a manager, if there's something in their behaviour that needs addressing, you will need to think about how you're going to appropriately manage that if somebody is choosing not to open up and share with you. Thinking also whether or not this is the right environment. Having a difficult conversation with somebody, especially if you're in an office environment and they've then got to go back to work, that could be very, very difficult. Similarly, you don't want somebody jumping in their car immediately maybe and driving home. You want to make sure that people have an opportunity to process and make sure they're in a good place. That might even mean that you leave an area at the end of the conversation, but allow them to stay back and have a little bit of time and then just check in that they are also okay. we're now in a position where we've noticed and perhaps we've engaged and we've followed up and we've had this conversation. We're going to have it as calmly as possible. It's great if you can transfer that sense of calm over to the other person, especially in a crisis situation, by you keeping seated, keeping your manner nice and even, avoiding becoming loud yourself. If somebody's very, very angry, allow time for that anger to dissipate. So being able to be quite grounded yourself, allowing silence even maybe help somebody who's very upset to be able to process and get back into a good place. We've now noticed and we've approached an individual. Let's think now about signposting. The big thing for managers here when we're talking about signposting is don't do this too early. Most of the time, the most powerful thing you can do is listen. Really, really listen. And be sensitive to the fact that the problem or the issue that they're sharing may not sound a big thing to you, but everybody's different, and how people perceive problems and what people are going through can change. Accepting that it's how it feels for them. Don't put yourself in a situation of responsibility to fix personal problems or to find solutions. The best solutions usually come from the individuals themselves. So you allowing them to talk about it and you helping them to think further by asking maybe more and more questions, very light questions, very open questions like, what else can you tell me about this problem? And giving them the time can help people to find their own solutions. If you feel you reach a point in the conversation where it does feel appropriate to offer some ideas and it feels that that will be welcome to the person, you need to have those tools available. You need to know what kind of support is available, maybe through your employer. You might perhaps have employee assistance support. You absolutely need to know, if that's the case, what is the number, is there a password or anything like that, and have all of that clear to hand. You may also want to think about locally what's available. What are we at Mind doing, for example, that you might be able to tap into? So having all those kind of ideas and resources that you could explore and discuss with somebody. The other tools that you ought to be fully aware of are the corporate risk assessment and wellness action plans, which are documents that encourage people to take responsibility for their mental health and identifies what are the things that they need to do in order to stay well, and what are the things that you as a manager can do that can be really, really helpful for those. And a great time to create those tools is actually when your team members are in a good place. So when you have a sense that actually people are feeling very mentally fit, is a great time to encourage them to document down into these wellness action plans. So there you have it. NAS. Notice, approach, and signpost. Finally, from the conversations that I've been having with many people during some of the webinars and courses that I've been running, there's three key things that you can look out for yourself as well as your team, just to keep checking in with your own mental health and just to keep making sure whether or not it might be helpful for you to have a conversation with your line manager. Because one of the things that we want is for your team to be able to approach you. If they have concerns over your mental health, that's going to be a huge barrier to them feeling able to share whatever kind of stresses and concerns they have in the workplace. So the three things to watch out for. Think back over the last few weeks. Have you had a laugh? And I'm talking about that real belly laugh. I'm not talking about a sinister laugh. I'm not talking about laughing at people. I'm talking about being genuinely amused. The second one is relaxed. Have you completely disengaged from the workplace? Have you left work behind and been able to do something completely different? Engaged with one of your hobbies, interacted with your friends and family, but been fully relaxed, had a lovely night's sleep, those kind of things. And then the final one is focused. Are you able to concentrate? Are you able to do one thing without that constant pressure to be checking lots of different things, to create an environment in your team where, especially when people are trying to do something difficult, protecting their ability to focus just on that one thing and in turn focusing your own is so powerful. So make sure you're including humour, relaxation, and the opportunity to focus.